Hi, I'm Mel DeJarnette, Vice President, Semen Processing and Research here at Select Sires. I'd like to talk to you today about the state of our company, our processing program, and more importantly, our systems that we have to make sure that we're providing you with a quality product. Now, if you look on the internet, a system will be defined as a system is a group of interacting or interrelated entities that form a unified whole. A system is delineated by its spatial and temporal boundaries, surrounded and influenced by its environment, described by its structure and purpose, and expressed in its functioning. There's no question our systems are changing today. Your customer systems have changed immensely in the last few years, and we see it back here. You're wanting more and more semen from younger and younger bulls. Not only do you want it from younger bulls, you want it sex sorted to a higher percentage. And if you don't get it sex sorted from young bulls, you're wanting beef semen. All of those types of semen production are much less efficient than the good old mature proven bulls that we used to collect years ago. And so it takes a lot of different systems to make sure we can pull all of that together here and provide you with the product you need. It's putting more and more pressure on us. We have to work harder for every straw, but as we strive to provide enough product not only to maintain sales, but we continue to want to grow, we're just having to work a little harder. Our genetics team has an outstanding set of systems to make sure they're selecting the right caliber of bulls that are going to be in demand and needed in the marketplace. Our veterinary team and our bull management team make sure that the bulls have adequate nutrition systems, health systems to make sure they can produce the utmost quality semen. And then our processing teams take over from there to make sure we're using state-of-the-art technologies to process and freeze that semen. And then ultimately, where the rubber really meets the road is in the quality control that these ladies are performing on each ejaculate of every bull to make sure only the highest quality semen makes it through our doors out to your tanks and into inventory. On each ejaculate of every bull, we do computerized sperm motility analysis, both at 0 and at 3 hours after thawing a straw. And we perform a flow cytometric evaluation to make sure to count 5,000 sperm in just a matter of a few seconds to measure the percentage of membrane intact or live versus dead sperm. And so it's a lot that goes into these systems to make sure that we're providing a quality product. Now, if you've read the propaganda from some of our competitors recently, you may be thinking, well, all this stuff doesn't matter because Select Sires is still using a half cc straw. Come with me, I want to show you another system. So this is Select Sires freezing area. So welcome to our freezing system. Our freezing system is optimized for freezing half cc straws. Now, I cannot take a 1/4 cc straw and throw it into a half cc system and expect it to work right any more than I can take the starter off of an 87 Chevy and put it into a 93 Ford and expect it to work right without some major changes. A system, a freezing system, straw size is just one component. Glycerol level is another component. Type of freezer is another component. Extender type is another component. Freezing rate is another component. There are lots of other components that must be considered and how they interact with the straw type in order to develop an optimized freezing system. If we want to use 1/4 cc straws again, like we have in the past, we simply have to recalibrate the system to optimize it. All of this was gone over in the early 1970s. 1/4 cc straw is nothing new. It was available in the early 70s. Every AI organization in the United States looked them over in the 70s, and every one of us went with the half cc straw at that time because there were no obvious fertility advantages, and it was definitely much more user-friendly easier to read, easier to handle. The main advantage of the quarter cc straw is that it takes less space to store it, so you can put twice as much semen in the same tank, and you can don't need as much storage area. It will change temperature faster, which in here means it freezes faster, but you simply have to calibrate for that and account for that in your freezing system. Once you've done that, a quarter cc freezing system compared to a optimized half cc freezing system, there's no difference. It's meaningless difference in the sperm viability with inside that straw. Now, where the quarter cc sensitivity to temperature change really does come into play is out there in the field when you've got a technician fumbling around inside a canister, raised canister, trying to pull a straw out or find the bull he wants. Or if you're a technician in Minnesota or Wisconsin breeding cows in free stalls during a polar vortex. That's where the quarter cc straw versus half cc can make a difference. To us, the advantages of the storage efficiency simply have not tipped the balance compared to the potential disadvantages out there in the field of temperature change with quarter cc straws. Now, before we leave, I want to talk about one last system that really is the meat and potatoes of whether I'm telling you something that's legitimate, viable, or relevant or not. And that is, what does a cow think? The cow doesn't know whether or not the semen was in a quarter cc straw or half cc straw, and she really doesn't care. She just wants to know whether enough live sperm in that product to successfully get the job done and get me pregnant. And we have systems to get semen out the door, get it used, get fertility evaluations back on bulls, particularly in the well-recognized sire conception rate, or SCR system. And we get that semen out there in a strategic, well-organized fashion so that we can get results back. And it's not as much about whether the bull is plus or whether the bull is minus, but the fact that we have fertility data that our salespeople and our customers can use from a non-biased source to make their own decisions as to whether or not how well that bull performs. And so with that, I'd like to go through a series of a few slides with you that kind of highlights this process. So I'd like to take you through a series of slides of sire conception rate data, or SCR data, for all of the evaluations that have occurred since August of 2017. Now, I could have picked any range of dates, but I picked August of 17 because that was the first SCR evaluation after the AGR merger. So we're more or less on an apples to apples level comparable playing field for that most recent time interval. We're going to start with Holstein bulls and just look at all of the bulls that received evaluations, what percentage are represented by which AI organizations. And I hope you see in this first slide that select sires represented 32 to 33% of all the Holstein bulls that had evaluations. And the rest of our competitors were struggling somewhere in the 10 to 15% range of the total population. Now think about that for a minute. If a producer tells you, I don't want to use a bull that doesn't have an SCR evaluation. I don't care if it's plus, I don't care if it's minus, I just want the data so I know how to make the decision. It's a 30% chance he has to go to select sires to find one compared to everybody else. This slide in reality is just a reflection of our size, how big we are and how well we're getting bulls evaluated. But if you're interested in the high fertility bulls, and all of the AI organizations are doing a comparable or equal job with semen quality, then when we go to that upper percentage, we should all be represented equally in that upper percentage as compared to what we were in the total population. Or in other words, we had 32% of the total population. So when we go to all the bulls in that category of high fertility +2 and above, we should still represent 32 to 33%. In fact, we jumped to almost 50%, in some evaluations over 50%, but certainly for the last several years, averaging 45 to 50% of the bulls that are +2 or greater in the Holstein had to come from select sires. And the rest of the competition, again, down in that 10 to 15% range. And if you're a Jersey breeder, the story's even greater. If you look at all the bulls that received evaluations, we represent 40 to 45% of all the bulls that even received evaluations and had fertility data for a producer to look at. But again, we're overrepresented in that upper population and actually have almost over 60% sometimes of the bulls that have a +2 or greater SCR, call select sires home. Think about this for a minute. So we're not talking about just one breed. We're talking about both Holstein and Jersey. We're not talking about just one evaluation. This is over every evaluation for several years. And we're not talking about a small difference. This is a huge magnitude of difference that's been consistently repeatable. And guess what? It was done against competition who had already switched or in the process of switching to quarter cc straws. Remember, it's not the straw that makes the difference. It's the system that makes the difference. So in the meantime, you just keep doing your job of support to the systems of your dairymen, and we'll keep doing our job to make sure our systems are providing you with the best genetics and the most fertile package in the industry.